And now it's my great pleasure to introduce to you Kevin Libbus from Enfo. And you're going to talk a little about customer cases in this regard.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm English, so I moved to Sweden about 2 years ago, and I decided 1 year ago that I needed to start learning. So you could probably ask me questions in Swedish, but I'd answer in English because I won't look very smart. So I'm Kevin. I'm Canadian. You guys know me as having the best hockey team in the world, second to Sweden. And I'm going to talk to you. I simplified the presentation quite a bit, and because that's what I do. And I asked Anders, what's the end goal here? What are you guys trying to solve today? And it was about inspiration around AI and RPA. And some inspiration or motivation that I hope you get from me is that you can, if you simplify it and make the project really, really easy, you can do this. Anybody can do this. I'm probably the least technical person in the room here, and I'm project managing RPA and blockchain and Watson because I simplify it. So that's my goal. Hopefully I achieve it. And I'll have a couple fluffy slides. So I run that box in the bottom left corner, process innovation, and Enfo, the company, is primarily known for being good at integrations and infrastructure. And about 2 years ago, they made a decision to bring some people on like me. We're more front end, looking at processes, identifying waste, etc. And we're simplifiers, and by nature, within 1.5 years, 2 years, we're now, oddly enough, the most technically involved group out of all of Enfo. And that's because we're starting with the process and the client understands what we're doing. And then it's an easy transition into RPA or blockchain or Watson. And we're the best. There's somebody from Enfo here, so. A couple fluffy slides, but it's important. I mean, I know in this room, even if I talk to you guys about automation. I had a customer yesterday, Santander Bank. They came to me and they're, we really like your small pilots. Can you come RPA one of our processes? And I thought about that process, and it was like internal credit checks, external credit checks, really complicated business rules. And so I knew that they didn't really know what RPA was. They were just interested in all these automation buzz terms. And I sat down, I talked to them, and sure enough, it was more about business rules and process engines. And so I think a lot of trouble you guys are going to have, because I'm in it every day, and I have trouble defining all these different automation and AI technologies. So if you just start simple, start basic, start with mapping the process, it's going to make it a lot easier. Have you guys today already talked about the different, like what the difference between RPA is and BPM? No? Oh, all right. And stop if you have questions if you don't understand, but like I have here, being in the bottom left corner is not a bad thing. 80% of your work, whether you're a CEO or on the front line, it's very simple tasks. And only maybe 10-20% of your work requires your thought process or your brain power. And for that 80%, RPA can help you in some shape or form, right? For that 10 or 20%, you're talking about the more complex stuff, like Watson or blockchain. Do you guys know all these main terms? You can tell I'm an IBMer as well, because these are mostly IBM products. But cognitive Watson, at a very high level, I'm going to show you a case on that, but that's to help you make decisions, basically. It looks through historical data and it gives you probabilities of a solution. BPM, this is a process engine where you actually go in and do work. Decision management, that's like business rules. So if you're a business person and you want to change a process, you want to automatically approve something, that's this technology. Integrations, screen scraping. Very simple. Enough fluffy stuff? Was there any questions on that? No? You're tired, last presentation of the day? So case examples. I'm going to show you 3 case examples. The first 2, I'm just going to talk about them. The third one is RPA, and I'm going to show you our approach. So this is Watson Cognitive, and I do advisory on and off for a bank in Stockholm. And they want to cut costs. So depending on your situation, maybe you want to improve employee experience or have better customer satisfaction. But they needed to cut costs. And so first thing you do is you think about the processes where cost will impact your business. Then you break it down. Okay, we've identified customer services might be an area. It's very costly. A lot of time wasted talking to the customers, redundancies, phone calls back and forth, etc. So then we started thinking, oh, Watson would be a good case. And so essentially Watson acts as the first point of contact to the customer. So hundreds of emails come in every day, and Watson looks for keywords. If you see in the email Javla or for fun, I know those are swear words in Sweden, but that's probably going to trigger it to go right to a complaints process, and then whoever handles complaints takes that process. If you see like address changes, like I need to change my address, Watson is going to push that right to the person who owns the address change processes. And if they can't figure it out, if it's an anomaly, it'll still go to the person who was originally handling it before. But instead of that person handling 100% of hundreds of emails a day, they're handling maybe 20, 30 emails a day. So I think this is a really cool case, and I think it's pretty simple. Watson reads the emails, looks for keywords, pushes it to the correct process. Blockchain. Anybody? Did you guys talk about blockchain today? No? How many people have heard of blockchain? Everybody, yeah. So you know what blockchain is, I guess, or high level. But I do Six Sigma work for a customer where basically I just look at all their business process, identify, prioritize, do some old school process mapping, and analyze them. And we make improvements to the way of working. And that's great, but then you want to recommend technology improvements, because today, I mean, process and technology are like this. You can't just have one or the other. And so we dug in and we did that work, and we noticed at a high level, well, they really needed like business rules, and they really needed only people who have permission to be in the process. They really want to track every single step. Who did what? When did they do it? And so we quickly realized that blockchain was the solution for them. But blockchain is quite a big solution. So instead, we're starting just a little pilot with one process where we're putting it here, and they're going to try that. And if it goes well, they keep going further and further. So if you start small, it's really easy. Now, let me show you our step-by-step approach. Any questions? No? Confusing? Makes sense? So at Enfo, I'm not trying to sell anything here either. You guys can do this. Just simplify, break it out. What's the first thing you should do when you're thinking of artificial intelligence or starting an RPA project? Just conceptualize, like, what business am I in? Okay, I'm in healthcare, finance and banking. Then take that to the next step and think, what business area is important to me? What's important to our business? Do we want to improve our relationship with our customers? Okay, let's look at processes that are related to that, or cost savings. And when you've done that, then you need to identify, prioritize, and analyze those processes, and really look at what those characteristics or the personality of those processes are. And I'll show you that in a second. But whenever you understand your process's personality, then you're ready to think about all these buzz terms. RPA, BPM, business rules, whatever. And you can get something up and running. The case I'm showing you, we've had it up and running within 7 weeks. I mean, especially with RPA, you could have, from the time you conceptualize it to look at the process to putting something into production, you're talking a few weeks. And you don't need very smart, experienced developers to do that. I mean, you guys could probably learn RPA on your own pretty quickly. It's a self-intuitive tool. So the very first step, like I said, is just get in a room and think, okay, what industry are we in? We're in healthcare. What are some entry-level RPA processes? And I'm cheating a little bit because I know we're talking about RPA here, but you would do this for the different technologies. You would, you know, healthcare, what processes are good for RPA? What processes are good for Watson or BPM? And just start to conceptualize these. And then if you want to couple them, putting sort of BPM and RPA together, conceptualize that. Everybody following? Sort of? So first step, you just, who are we? What are our processes? What's important to us? And then the next step is prioritizing those. So we've determined, you know, this is an important business area and costs are important. So we list a bunch of processes in that business area and we apply a weighting to it. So maybe you have cost is important, or employee experience, or customer satisfaction. And if cost is the most important, then you apply a highest weighting to that. Then you walk through, and out of a score of 1 to 5, you apply. So this process has a lot of cost implications to it. So that would have a 5. And you work through this matrix, and out comes a list of prioritized processes. And then you should come down to maybe 3, 4, 5 processes that you want to work on. So important processes that are in your industry, important for your business area, and the most important processes within those business area. And now you're ready to do some old school process mapping. I know a lot of people like to skip that and they think, so I'm a Six Sigma guy, and basically what that means is I go in, map processes, analyze them, and look for improvements. And a lot of people, when they hear Six Sigma, they say, oh, that's so 1980s. But you can't skip that step. It's critically important. And you'll see why. So if we map the process, we can start to identify immediately at a high level first, what are some automation opportunities? Okay, this is for a claims process. So if I record damage, confirm accuracy, to calculate something. Today you're going into a database and you're looking at a customer form, you're probably calculating something in Excel. I know that could be automated, whether it's RPA or BPM or cognitive. There's probably some tools that can help you. And the purpose of this step is just to start to recognize where at a high level in your process there'll be opportunities. But then you need to get down into the weeds a little bit. And this is an ugly looking slide. But but map the process down in the weeds. And the reason you start here, is if you're in a room together and you're mapping the process, based on my experience, everybody's going to have a different picture of what that process actually looks like. One department's going to say, this is how that process works. Or that department, no, actually it's like this. So if you start with the happy path, and happy path is 80% of the time what happens. What does it look like at a high level? Usually you can get people to agree, yeah, that's probably something like the happy path. And if you get people to agree early, then they tend to agree as the project goes on more and more. So that's the reason I mapped the happy path. But then at some point, I mean, you will have to get down in the weeds. And what we do, or where I still see value in Six Sigma, I can look at a process map, and I mean, if I see this, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, I know, not even asking a question about the process, there's probably too many reviews and approvals in that process. Or if it's like gray, white, gray, white, gray, white, gray a system. It means you're going in and out of systems all the time. You're probably using too many systems, or you're probably going into this database, pulling information out of there and this one, and then inputting it here. So it can be a lot of redundant situations and systems. And of course, the number of swim lanes is self-evident. Do we really need this many people to spend this much time on one process? So that's the value of process mapping. And it helps you understand where technologies can help you. So the gray, white, the swivel chair, multiple screens for filling information. Oh, maybe there's some automation that can help there. Or I'm pulling information from different places and entering it in Excel. Automation. Or I need to talk to like 3 or 4 different people who are very knowledgeable and experienced because it's a complex situation. That could be something like Cognitive or Watson that can help you. But at this point in time, for you guys, you don't need to know the technology stuff. If you can just map the process and look at it and understand where the issues are, that's going to make it 1,000 times easier to get started in AI. Confusing? Make sense? No? Yeah. Okay, and this is my favorite part of all these projects and initiatives, because I think it brings together why you should do that mapping and that analysis. So you've looked at that process and you've understood the personality. And what I mean is that you're looking and you're saying, okay, is this process really repetitive? Am I doing the same thing all the time? Do I need to consult anyone? No. Okay, then maybe that's a RPA case. Or is this process really complex? Do I need to consult different people? Do I need really senior people to make decisions that differ every time? Okay, then that's definitely not RPA, and I hope no one tells you that is. That's much more complex. You need more robust systems. That's like Watson or BPM or business rules. But so all we've done here is we've identified, we prioritized processes, we mapped and analyzed them, and if you do that, you'll quickly be able to identify which technology is most likely right for you. And this looks confusing, but all I'm trying to depict somehow that in this process, by the way, this was with LF in Stockholm, and this is how we arrived at doing a BPM and RPA project. So we identified that their process was all over the place, like someone was taking a customer inquiry and they'd copy and paste it, save it in a system, they'd forward that to somebody else, they'd pull information from this database, and it was quite confusing. So we realized, based on what they needed, they wanted to auto-prioritize work and notifications. When they received the claim from the customer, they wanted to check to make sure it was accurate and that it was complete, and they wanted to automatically store it somewhere. And of course, they wanted to monitor the status of that. And so it doesn't matter to get into the details of BPM and RPA, but what we landed on for the pilot was taking that claims process, using a process engine where that's executed. And to simplify that, what that basically means is you have a process. If I'm a worker, I log in, and there's the BPM on screen that I'm looking at, and that's doing integrations to different databases. So that's what BPM is. The RPA is what you're actually doing on the screen. So I'm double-clicking an email, I'm opening a PDF, I'm looking at the PDF, and I'm taking information from that, and I'm putting it into a form somewhere else or saving it. That's RPA. And RPA is really simple to conceptualize. And oddly enough, there was, I think, 17 steps in the process. So they all went into BPM, and we only used RPA for 3 steps. Very, very simple steps, and you'd think, well, that's a waste of time, because all they're doing is opening up an email, reading it, and doing some data, screen scraping, and then saving it somewhere. But those 3 steps alone took more time than the entire process. So I thought it was a pretty cool pilot to work on. And you don't need 1,000 resources to do it. So the wrong way is if you guys are hiring external consultants to do these things, guys showing up in a suit, the old way of doing it is, yeah, we're going to have a project manager, a scrum master, an integration developer, a BPM developer, an RPA developer, and I'm sure you're still seeing that, and it gets way too complicated. For a pilot project, keep it really, really small. Just one person who's obviously experienced and skilled, who's an analyst, but can manage the project. It's only one process that you're looking at. So one person to do that, and then a skilled developer. And all these different, they're just tools. I mean, RPA is just a tool. It's just another tool. Process engines, they're just a tool. Watson, they're just a tool. If they're developers and they have the developer languages like Java, C++, they can learn these tools in a couple weeks. So invest time with your developers for them to learn these tools so that you don't have to have these big teams where it gets complicated. And if you do that, having one or two people, you're going to see a lot of great gains. And I guess for this project, it was 2.5 resources. And when we were competing for the project, we went up against one of the big four, and their proposal, I know, had 9 people involved. And we had 2.5 just by going with this approach. It's almost done. It took 7 weeks. And we took a process that was completely, I'd say, unmodeled to a completely straight through process flow. And I mean, I'm a consultant. I can make up numbers here. You shake your head, yeah, 50%, 80%, it doesn't matter. But I always like to try to visualize things a little bit. They had a process that was here. I mean, it was completely unmanaged. And I can bet that you guys have a lot of processes like this. And you're thinking, oh, well, I mean, today we're like in Excel sheets and emails. How can we go from there to blockchain? And if you just start with the basics, it's really not that complicated. Just start, okay, who are we? What's our industry? We're healthcare. What business area is important to us? We want to have better customer relationships. Okay, narrow the focus down to processes that impact your customer relationship. Now let's look at those processes a little bit more. Let's map them and analyze them. And sure enough, you'll find stuff that you can change today that's low-hanging fruit without even talking about technologies. And that'll start to bring you down the ladder a little bit. And then when you're understood your processes, their behaviors, their personalities, very repetitive, or they're very complex, then you'll be able to start thinking about more complex AI technologies. We started with modeling the process. There was nothing modeled. And we started by putting it into BPM. When it was in BPM, RPA was the last step. And we're just finishing that up, and it's on time, 7 to 8 weeks. And again, I'm not going to focus on the outcome, but it's straight through processing. So a customer fills out a claims form, and there's not a human point sometimes at all in the entire process. For the anomalies or the complicated ones, it goes to the person. So that is a good thing for the people, because the people can now focus on other processes. It's not like you lose your job, because you get paid for those 20% of the processes that are complex, that require your brain power. The other 80% where you're just copying and screen scraping, it's not a lot of value to that situation. Oh, I had a lot of other slides. If you guys are interested or not, but maybe I'll just open it up for questions and it might lead to those slides. But I know you're tired and it's the end of the day. And any questions? And these are more, yeah, sure. These are just more, because I didn't know where this, what you guys were focusing on today, but the 10 hottest AI technologies today: natural language generation, speech recognition, virtual agents, machine learning platform, and AI optimized hardware. There's a couple points. I don't think there's actually any technology that is artificially intelligent yet. And artificial intelligence means a computer is actually learning on its own, or data is actually learning on its own. There's no technology that's doing that yet. We're still 20, 30 years away from that. But things like cognitive tooling is it's looking at information and it's giving you probabilities based on historical data. So there's a slight difference there. Another beef I have is the term robotic process automation. Robotic process automation doesn't automate a process. There's a process with, say, 30, 40 steps. RPA will only automate tasks within that process, so maybe 10 steps or 5 steps. So there's quite a confusing delineation there with what RPA actually is, and I think that causes confusion with a lot of people. One thing I like is biometrics. I'm asked to change my password at Enfo every 3-4 weeks, and biometrics is looking at your face, right? So I wonder if they'll ask me to change my face every 3 to 4 weeks. I don't know. Hopefully not. Is there any questions around the tools or technologies? Like, what are they? Where do you see your business area impacting the most? I'm not sure. With healthcare, Watson is growing like crazy in China and in the USA, and it's quite interesting. Hospitals can now predict 3-4 days ahead of time when the flu season is going to start. So Watson goes into these Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and they start to analyze what people are posting. And they can see people posting, I'm not feeling so well today. And there's a correlation in that region and in that area. And then they can say, okay, we can tell that in 3 or 4 days, there's going to be a mass number of people that are going to come into our hospital. I think it's quite an interesting case because, I mean, technology is better preparing them for the incoming number of people. That's pretty cool. So I'd say with healthcare, you'll probably see a lot of cognitive or Watson to help you with your business and decision making. Yeah. Anything else? You're tired? You want to go home? Thanks.